Good morning. My name is John Regenton, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 6th ActivatEE keynote. Just to provide a little bit of context and background to this particular experience, in 2013, when we were working on the conference, the theme of the conference at that time was about voice. And it was our objective to look at keynotes and figure out how could we bring more voice into the mix. Well, here we are 6 years later and 40 speakers later who are obviously coming together to provide and share a story about them, their journey, and their experience to all of us. It's not about telling people what they should think, feel, or do, but it's more about how they experience their own story and how that story has shaped them for who they are today. It's their own experiential learning cycle. These individuals come to us with an idea. They are partnered up with a coach. And over the last few months, we reframe, reshape, discuss, push, until we get to a place that we believe that they're ready to stand on the stage and share a moment in time with all of you. With that said, I would like to have the folks who have spoken before here at ActivatEE to at least stand up and be recognized. What a good-looking group. So with that said, it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker. At 25, Cecilia Polanco owns and manages So Good Pupusas, a social justice food truck serving Salvadorian pupusas. And so I got braces. And when your jaw starts to move after 40-some years, the tongue doesn't land in the same space any longer. But it's not about me. It's about Cecilia. Cecilia was born in California to Salvadorian immigrants, and she was raised in Durham. As a recipient in the first class of the Global Gap Year Fellowship, Cecilia took a gap year between high school and college to volunteer and travel abroad as a global citizen. Recently, she was recognized as a local food hero by the Center for Environmental Farming Systems. She hopes to one day open a second truck or restaurant as a platform for community culinary entrepreneurs to start their businesses. Let's welcome Cecilia.
Pupusas. P-U-P-U-S-A-S. Pupusas. As a social entrepreneur and founder of a nonprofit, my world revolves around this one word. Going into college, I had no idea who I wanted to be and declared myself undecided as my major. I started my venture while I was in college with no background in business and no background in food. When I graduated college as a global studies major, I didn't take a full-time job and I didn't go straight to grad school. I chose instead to pursue running a food truck, which left my mother asking, "So what job does global studies get you?" To which I would answer, "Pupusa flipper." There was so much uncertainty and risk in that choice. I felt like a senior in high school again. A senior who was going to her dream school, but deferred it to take a gap year, something I had never heard of before and knew no one who had taken one. There I was, a college graduate, choosing to run a food truck when I'd never worked on one, and all I knew about pupusas was how to eat them. I was able to make that choice because of a scholarship I received to take a gap year. My gap year changed me. At 18, I chose to start my gap year in Italy because in addition to pupusas, one of my favorite foods was pizza. That is how I made decisions at 18. When I first arrived in Italy, I couldn't bring myself to leave the house for 3 whole days. A month later, I was on a train for the first time, headed to a farm in a place I'd never been, to be picked up by people I'd never met. Yet, that night, I couldn't muster the courage to search for the outdoor bathroom in the dark and spent the whole night awake with a really full bladder. Later that year, I would find myself venturing even further across the world by myself to Australia, where I'd go scuba diving in the Great Barrier Reef, hold a koala bear, and get kicked out of my host parents' house with no place to go just days before coming home. My gap year changed me. And what I've learned from reflecting on my gap year and who I became is that changed people create change. My opportunities started when I received a full merit-based scholarship called the Moorhead Cane, known as the oldest, most prestigious scholarship in the country, to attend my dream school, UNC Chapel Hill, and it continued with another scholarship called the Global Gap Year Fellowship to not attend college, at least right away. I would not have had either of those opportunities had I been undocumented, and I very well could have been. It is not a reality too far removed from my own. I have family, friends, and peers who are undocumented, and my family entered this country illegally to seek asylum, much like the asylum seekers we hear about in the migrant caravans. But I was fortunate enough to be born in the United States. Being documented meant a full ride to UNC was possible for me. It meant that a global service year was possible for me. So I had to find a way to pay that forward. And a scholarship to college for undocumented students was my how, and pupusas were my moneymaker. With the support of scholarships, my family, and my mom, and a gap year under my belt, I could take on anything. That's why years later, I had the confidence to be someone I'd never been and to do something I'd never done. I had already done it before. Now I can run a food truck. I've been working on this venture for over 3 years, and we've been full-time for about a year and a half. The first time I drove the food truck, it broke down, and I was stuck on the side of the road, dripping in sweat in mid-July. A few months later, we passed inspection the morning of our first event, and I didn't know how to turn on the stove. In the beginning, I couldn't properly flip a pupusa and burnt many batches of black beans, which left my mom saying, "Ay, Dios mío, ¿qué voy a hacer con esta niña?" But I've made her very proud since. Now, not only do I know how to make pupusas, I have made over 200 myself while working in international festival. The struggle was real in the beginning, but I wasn't running a food truck because I was good at it. I chose to run a food truck as a means to an end, to fund scholarships for undocumented students, because I had access and realized that others didn't. Some of our next goals are to build capacity by opening another food truck and starting a fund for undocumented students to take a gap year. If you know anyone doing this work or anyone who is interested, please point me in their direction, link us up so we can make it happen. I had access. That's my why. I had access, and others should too. Because when there doesn't seem to be enough resources to go around, you don't build a higher wall. You build a bigger food truck. Thank you.